Hello, caregivers. This is a follow-up to the recent presentation that you attended. I received a few more questions that I'm going to go through briefly. I could talk about this for hours, but I'm going to try to give you very succinct responses to the questions. So the first question was, are there any prioritization frameworks or levels to help to do less or decide what to focus on? The first answer to that is it really depends on your life stage and what's important to you and where you are. Are you very young and you don't have children? Are you raising children? Are you raising children and caring for aging parents? So what you want to look at as a priority is what's really causing you the most pain or the most struggle. And you can make a list, but I don't recommend making a list of more than 3 because you're going to want to prioritize one over the other. Make this list for yourself, have your spouse make a list. Talk about the list as a family to see which of those priorities is most important. You also want to look at what do you value in life? What is important? Because this list of things that you have, does it meet what you're intending for your life? Does it meet your goals? With everything that we do, there is this time-energy trade-off. You already know that because you are caregivers who are super busy trying to manage everything. You also want to look at what contributed to the situation that you're making a priority. So what did you do to make that happen? What can you do to kind of move forward through that? And take a look at timeframes. So is this something that we can solve in, a month or 3 months or 6 months? You want to make the most pressing priority the first and then work through the other ones, because sometimes if you try to work through 2 or 3 at the same time, you end up not doing a really good job on all 3 of them. The next question in here is, what are some of the ways we can check that we are making enough time for self-care? That's a great question. Well, the first question to ask yourself is, how do you feel? Are you energized? Are you exhausted? How are your relationships? So self-care are things not only like exercise or a massage or eating well. It's also about things that we do to make our life easier and more pleasant. How is our communication within our family? I know that when we had the group, that was a question that came up is, how do we communicate better within our families? How are we on our expectations of each other's? Are we giving ourselves enough time to accomplish things? Are we expecting too much? That causes more stress. So the way that you know if you're giving yourself enough time for self-care is that you feel good. Life is going smoothly, things are going well, your relationships are positive, but know that you will occasionally have glitches where some issue is going to come up and you have to work through it or deal with it. And for a few days, you may not be so great at self-care, but you kind of get back to it and you start doing it again. Next question. So what is the biggest benefit to your type of meditation and how long did it take for you to achieve that status? So I do what is called transcendental meditation. And the idea of this is it's the absence of thought. So there's nothing going on up here when I meditate, or there shouldn't be anyway. Many meditation practices, you are visualizing things, you're thinking things, you may be going through a process. TM is totally different from that. I started doing it about 20 years ago because I was in an extremely stressful work situation like many of you are. And I needed some tools to help me get through that and to be more calm with my emotions, more practical, more thoughtful. And so I'm going to give you a couple of websites. The first one is tmtommary.org. And when you go there, I ask you to be open-minded. There's some information about there, and when you investigate it, you will understand what I mean. The second website is the davidlynchfoundation.org. David Lynch is a famous person who has done a lot of research on TM in the school system and for children, and how it helps not only improve the children's health, but their focus, their education, their learning. So really, TM could become a family project for you if you're interested. There's a lot of research on the health benefits, lowering blood pressure, lowering cholesterol, things like that. What I mostly noticed for myself, and I can't really say what time frame it took for me to notice that there was a change, but overall, I am less reactive than I was over 20 years ago. I don't get so triggered when something goes wrong. I'm more reflective. I think about what I'm doing. Sometimes I'll even think about something for 24 hours or 48 hours before I make a decision. The thing with meditation is, though, you do have to combine it with other self-care projects. So it's not going to solve a self-care issue all by itself, but combined with exercise and taking care of yourself and other things, it can make a huge difference in your life. Next question here is about caregivers and care receivers disagreeing on care, and how do caregivers negotiate with the care receivers to help people make those decisions. So the first thing with caregiving is that, kind of like the idea of self-care, no one can make you do that. Until we all figure out what our motivation is, what our why is for doing self-care, it can be difficult to understand why someone might not be motivated to take better care of themselves or their health or exercise or eat better or quit smoking. So if you can look at the difficulty that you are experiencing in trying to make time for self-care and kind of look at that as your basis or your experience of understanding how the person that you care for may not want to make necessary changes. We are all ingrained in our daily habits, the things that we do. It can take a real mind shift or a real motivation to get us to make those changes, and know that we cannot force anyone to do anything. We can try to motivate them. We can be supportive. We can try to help them, but habit change occurs from within. It occurs from the heart and the mind and the body and the soul. So when you talk to the person that you're caring for, you can say, well, I think this would be really helpful to the situation. How do you feel about that? What is your understanding of the health concern? So let's use diabetes. What is your understanding of whether you don't take care of your diabetes or you do? You're healthier, you feel better, you feel worse, you may need more care, end up in a nursing home. So you kind of talk about consequences and motivations and try to help them be motivated. But you can also say, I feel like I've been putting a lot of pressure on you to do this. I am not going to do that anymore. I am stepping back. It is all up to you. And I'll respect whatever you choose to do. But know that, there are consequences. The consequences could be this or this. And since you're at peace with your decision, I'm at peace too. If this goes well, I'm also at peace if it all falls apart and you have to make some very hard decisions. So you take the responsibility off yourself for being that person to motivate them, because it is really their responsibility to do that themselves. Next question is, how can we step back from being too helpful? Well, the first thing is to realize that you have been too helpful. And then to have a discussion with your family to say, I realize I've been doing all of this stuff. And I think, maybe I've been overstepping my boundaries. Maybe I've been doing too much. I don't know how you feel. Maybe you enjoy me doing everything for you. But I'm going to take a step back and I'm going to stop doing A, B, and C, which means that you will have the responsibility for doing A, B, and C. I'm not going to stop doing this all at once, but over a period of a week or 2 weeks or 3 weeks, I'd like to see you take this responsibility back. Then you talk about all the positive things about them doing that. So the positive things could be gaining more confidence in their abilities, higher self-esteem, better health, whatever the benefits are. But you don't just stop one day of being this helpful person and kind of just spring it on somebody else. You have to have these conversations about why it's important. And you can also say, I need more time for myself. I need some time for self-care so that I can do for myself all of these things that I'm suggesting that you do for yourself. So it's kind of like a team effort in one person helping themselves and another person helping themselves. And the goal is for them to become more independent without you. Another question is, how do we talk to our kids about money? The first thing is, it depends on the age of your children, obviously, and what they can understand. But, I don't want you sharing your bank accounts or your financial statements. But the way that you start talking about money is you relate it to things that your children may want. Maybe a pair of tennis shoes or a game or something. And you can say, well, we understand that you want this, this thing is, 5 hours of my time and your mom's time or your dad's time at work every day. And we understand that you want it and we're happy to help you get it, but we'd like you to contribute. And the way that you can contribute is by doing things around the house. So when I would have these conversations with children who were about 6 years old, what we did was we made a calendar. And we put tasks on there like, do the dishes, clean your room, fold your laundry, walk the dog. Every day that they did that, we would put a star on the calendar. If they didn't do it, we didn't make a big deal about it, but the number of stars on that calendar every month equaled something. So it could be going out for, an ice cream cone or going to see a movie or something. So there were rewards for the stars, and the more stars, obviously, the more rewards. We didn't talk about the negative part because you don't want to focus on the negative. Then also we focused on things as a family. So we as a family want to do these things. How do we get there, and what effort is it going to take for us to save to, maybe go on a weekend vacation or do this? So you kind of talk about really what things cost and how they're earned. The other thing that you can do is tie this into self-care. So first week out of the month is mom's week. Second is dad's week. Third week is child number 1. Fourth week is child number 2. On those weekends, you do something as a family, but it's the person's preference. So dad wants to go, to a baseball game, but not everybody likes baseball. That's okay, because the understanding is we learn to do things for other people because we love them and because they like to do it. So in return, when your children want to do things that you may not want to do, you will still do it. And so it kind of fosters the conversation of, we are a family. We have expenses. We know we need things. We all have to work toward that. And the children included have to work toward those things. So I think that is all of the questions that I had on this list. I got through them. So thank you again so much for joining me for that caregiving session. Thank you for asking the questions at the end. I so appreciate it. Appreciate everything that you do as caregivers. I am Pamela D Wilson, caregiving expert, advocate, and speaker. More help and support is on my website at PamelaDWilson.com.